Look at deployment numbers across any major industry. The pattern is identical. Organizations scale these systems because competitive compulsion forces them to. Enterprise operators deploy generative AI agents directly into production workflows, accepting unknown risk as the strict cost of entry. Commercial insurance carriers refuse to underwrite risk they cannot independently measure. Because nobody can currently audit what an autonomous agent actually does in real time, carriers execute what the industry calls silent exclusions. The mechanism is thoroughly documented. In 2026, the Insurance Services Office published specific exclusion endorsements, including the CG447 form. Carriers continue writing premiums on general liability policies that stay silent about AI, while quietly stripping the actual coverage through these filed instruments. The enterprise pays the premium, but the protection does not exist. As corporate coverage thins, Delaware corporate law closes the trap from the bottom. Under the Caremark and McDonald's rulings, the duty of oversight attaches directly to corporate officers. If an AI system fails and no valid monitoring was in place, the liability bypasses the corporate balance sheet entirely and lands on the officer personally. Faced with this exposure, executives instinctively reach for the standard enterprise defense. They deploy the generative agent and place a software dashboard over it, assuming it satisfies the legal requirement. Courts and insurance carriers reject this specific configuration for mission-critical systems. The legal mandate requires an independent system of oversight, and software grading its own software fails that test. You can ensure the negligence of a human employee because a human leaves an independent paper trail. You cannot ensure the actions of a black box agentic system unless you can prove exactly what it did through an independent, verifiable witness. The boardroom calculus inverts completely. The software dashboard executives rely on to shield the company from risk actually functions as the primary legal evidence of their bad faith negligence. When confronted with this reality, executives typically retreat to the spaghetti defense. They assume liability dissolves across the massive, tangled web of multiple vendors, integrators, and model providers required to run an agent. Vendor indemnities offer zero legal protection here. Provider liability caps are strictly limited to your trailing 12 months of fees, and their advertised indemnifications cover copyright claims, not core business losses caused by an agent's failure. The Boeing board paid $237.5 million to settle exactly this type of claim. Courts punish the conscious failure to install a dedicated monitoring system. That is the definition of bad faith, regardless of who built the failing component. Regulatory frameworks are accelerating this standard. The EU AI Act's Article 14 explicitly mandates that high-risk systems maintain independent oversight by natural persons, operating entirely outside the software's failure domain. A judge will not untangle a vendor web for you. A system in which nobody can say whose fault the failure was is by construction a system nobody was monitoring. The tangle itself proves the oversight charge. This forces the central engineering question that invalidates the standard dashboard. Why can't software independently witness software? An AI agent operates in a Turing-complete environment. This means it has theoretically infinite semantic possibilities and can process instructions in an endless variety of ways. Rice's theorem, established in 1953, dictates a strict mathematical boundary. It proves you cannot write a finite software rulebook to perfectly monitor an AI's infinite semantic behavior. Because of this limitation, engineers place the monitoring dashboard inside the exact same software stack as the agent it watches. This architecture creates a shared failure domain. When a critical failure event occurs, whether the AI agent hallucinates a response or the core OS kernel is compromised by a targeted attack, the disruption cascades outward. It instantly compromises the monitoring tools that share that domain. The architectural reality is absolute. If the stack drifts, the watcher goes down with the watched. Any software logs generated by the AI agent during a failure cannot be trusted as evidence in a liability claim, because the system generating the logs is compromised by the very event it is supposed to record. The dashboard's output under these conditions is nothing more than circular reporting. It is the watched system grading its own performance. Presenting this circular reporting system to a board of directors constitutes knowingly accepting a critical, unmeasured vulnerability. Plaintiff lawyers map this specific architectural flaw directly onto the bad faith legal framework, proving that independent oversight was mathematically impossible from the moment of deployment. A software monitor sharing a failure domain remains vulnerable to the same stack compromise it is tasked with reporting. To escape the liability trap, the monitoring instrument must exist entirely outside the software layer. It must operate where behavior is physical. The solution relies on performance monitoring units, or PMUs. These are physical hardware counters situated directly at the silicon substrate level, completely isolated from the operating system. PMUs bypass the Turing-complete trap entirely. They track exact physical execution steps, like memory access and instruction fetches, rather than attempting to parse and understand complex semantic language. This visualization shows the stability baseline of a deployed agent. The core engineering breakthrough is that semantic drift is physical drift. An agent authorized to perform a specific task leaves a tight, orderly, and highly predictable physical fingerprint on the chip. When that agent attempts an unauthorized semantic action, like granting an illegal database permission or hallucinating a false record, it is physically forced to diverge from its authorized baseline to execute those new instructions. Because cloud environments are noisy, we measure these physical fingerprints against a random baseline. Our shape match testing shows that the authorized path and the anomalous one separate by 8.5 sigma, a statistical distance that makes the measurement effectively definitive. By measuring physical position instead of software logic, we generate a non-Turing-complete, strictly mathematically verifiable proof of intent. It is an artifact courts cannot dismiss. Executives hold on to one final defense mechanism, the belief that they are legally safe because everyone else in the industry currently relies on software dashboards. In 1932, the T.J. Hooper ruling shattered the industry standard defense permanently. The doctrine established by Judge Learned Hand states that an entire industry can be held liable for unduly lagging in the adoption of new, available safety devices, regardless of common practice. Applied to corporate AI deployments, the law is clear. Custom is not care. The moment a mathematically provable hardware witness, like PMU attestation, hits the market, the definition of reasonable care immediately shifts. Choosing to stick with a flawed software dashboard when a superior, independent witness exists legally transforms from standard practice into willful negligence. The drift receipt functions as a strategic governance artifact, a recomputable physical measurement sitting directly in the board minutes, quarter after quarter. This physical attestation provides the measurable evidence carriers require to write affirmative D&O coverage that competitors currently lack. The advantage compounds rapidly. The measured enterprise greenlights agentic systems and scales confidently, while unmeasured competitors remain paralyzed in endless pilot testing, unable to secure risk committee approval. The personal liability mandate has your name on it. By deploying true independent hardware oversight, so does the ultimate strategic advantage in the AI market.